Let's start out with the problem 2,396 plus 1,536. Normally, we would just do this problem by lining it up vertically and regrouping any tens and ones that needed regrouped into hundreds or thousands. But the reason we're doing this strategy called compensation is to help you do it with mental math. So all we are doing, we're looking at 2,396 first. That is not a friendly number. But what is a friendly number is 2,400. That is a much easier number to think about. But how we got to from 2,396 to 2,400 was by adding 4. Now, if we did that and still tried to add 1,536, we would get a totally different answer, which would be wrong. So what we have to do is figure out how to make this plus 4 equal nothing. And there's a little trick in compensation that we do to cancel out that 4 to make it equal nothing. So if we have a plus 4, and a minus 4, that is 0 because 4 minus 4 equals 0. So if we subtract 4 from our 1,536, we're essentially doing nothing to our numbers. So in your head, if we go backwards 1,536 and we go back 4, well, I know that 6 minus 4 is 2. So that's going to be plus 1,532. Now here it looks a lot easier to do in my head where I don't have to do any regrouping because look, I now have I don't even have to line it up vertically because I have a 0 here, a 0 here, and a 4 here. So I'm not changing my tens and my ones place. I can just say, oh, well, my tens and ones places are going to be 32. I know that 5 plus 4 is 9, and I know that 2 plus 1 is 3. So our answer should be 3,932. Now let's check that with our traditional strategy or our vertical method. So we have, let's write it up and down, 2,396 plus 1,536. All right, so here we go. Let's go in our columns. We have 6 plus 6, and that is 12. We put the 2 in there. We carry or regroup that 10. Now you have a 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 plus 3 is 13. We're going to regroup that. A 1 plus 3 is 4. 400 plus 500 is 900. We don't have to regroup that. And then 2 plus 1 is 3. So if you notice, we still got the same answer by doing that, both strategies. And now I'm not saying that you have to do this strategy. It just gives you an easy way if you needed to do something quick in your head and you don't have pencil and paper to go ahead and regroup all of these tens, ones, and hundreds places. So let's go ahead and we'll try another one. Let's do 298 plus 145. Now I'm looking right now, again, I know how to line these up vertically and add my ones, tens, and hundreds places. But let's say I needed to be quick. All right, 298 is not a friendly number, so let's make it 300 because that's a super easy number to work with. How do we get from 298 to 300? We add 2. But if we only add that 2, that changes the value of the problem. So we have to go and subtract 2 from 145, which is 143. And again, if you're thinking, how did she get that plus 2 minus 2? Well, we had to add 2 to get from 298 to 300. So we can't just add 2 and leave it there. We have to we have to subtract it. So we have to actually do this 2 minus 2. So we're really not doing anything to our answer. So we're still going to add our two numbers together. Well, this is easy because I have two zeros here. Well, that's 43 in the tens and ones place. And then all I have to do is add up my hundreds, 3 and 1, and that gets 4. So we have 443 as our answer. And let's go over to the side and do it the traditional way where we regroup our ones and tens. 298 plus 145. We add 8 plus 5 and we get 13. Regroup that 1 into the tens place. 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 plus 4 is 14. So I have 14 tens. That gives us 140. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. Look, our answer is 443 this way and 443 that way. And this is why we use compensation, to make it a little bit easier so we don't have to regroup. Now, subtraction with compensation is a little bit different because where we added and subtracted to make a 0 to get to our friendly numbers, now we have to move both numbers up because I like to think of subtraction as a distance. And in order for our answers to stay the same when we use compensation, we have to keep those numbers the same distance apart. So while that may not make sense right now, we're going to find a friendly number. 5,194 is not a friendly number to subtract, but what I can do is make a friendly number by making this 5,200. And how I got from 5,194 to 5,200 was I moved this number up 6. So when I subtract, I have to move both numbers up 6. So that means 7,312 will become 7,318, which is still going to be easier to subtract than that original problem. And I will not have to borrow at all. I will not have to regroup. So if I just know right away, I have a 1 and 8 minus 0. That's going to be 18 in the ones place and tens place. 3 minus 2 is 1. And then 7 minus 5 is 2. Now let's check and make sure that worked. 7,312 minus 5,194. Now this is not friendly because I have more on the floor. I have to go next door and get 10 more. So this is where we get into all of our regrouping here. We go next door, we get 10 more. So the 2 will become a 12, minus 4 is 8. Oh, but look, I have more on the floor here. 0 minus 9 is not something we can do. So I go next door and I borrow or regroup. I get 10 more hundreds from that 3. And now I have 10 hundreds here, so I can do 10 minus 9 and I get 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. 7 minus 5 is 2. And if you notice, we got the same exact answer. And I didn't have to do any regrouping with this one, which made it so nice. And if it doesn't make sense to you as to why I had to add 6 to both numbers, let's break it down and do something a little bit easier. If I had 6 minus 3, this is an easy problem. We all know the answer is 3. But let's go on the number line. And I have let's say we start with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we'll start with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And my first numbers that I'm using are 6 and 3. The distance between those numbers is 1, 2, 3. But let's say I shifted those down the number line. So if I shifted those, let's see if we have to keep the same distance. So I'm going to make the 3 a 4, and I'm going to make the 6 a 7 because I just moved them over 1. Let's see if the distance is the same. it is still 1, 2, 3 away. Just like the distance is 1, 2, 3 away for 6 minus 3. 7 minus 4 is the same difference, or it's the same distance. So all we did was make friendlier numbers that are the same distance apart by adding the same thing to make friendlier numbers on both sides. Let's go ahead and try another subtraction one. Let's try another subtraction problem that we use compensation to change numbers into friendlier numbers. I have 1,700 minus 398. 398 is an unfriendly number because if I look over here, I would be subtracting across zeros, and that's a lot of borrowing that I might not have pencil or paper for. But what I can do, 398 is awfully close to 400. So I'm going to change that to 400 by doing what? Adding 2. So since I added 2 to this number, I have to add 2 to our first number to make them the same distance apart. Remember how we moved that 6 and the 3? We had to move each one so the distance between them stayed the same. That's what we're doing here. We're just moving them the same amount over to make the distance the same. So 1,700 plus 2 is just 1,702. And look, this looks very easy to subtract. We have no borrowing now because 2 minus 0 is just 2. 0 minus 0 is 0. 7 minus 4 is 3. And 1 minus nothing is 1. So our answer, and we had to do no borrowing at all, is 1,302. So again, we did no regrouping and we got 1,302 by using compensation and just sliding those numbers up 2 to get to friendlier numbers. And we kept the distance between them the same. Let's do regrouping now to make sure our answers are the same. We have 1,700 minus 398. Now here's where we have to do all that subtracting across the zeros because I have more on the floor. So I have to go next door and get 10 more. But I can't do that. So I have to go next door and get another 10 more. So I have 6 in the hundreds place because I regrouped. I borrowed 100. Now I have 10 tens, but I had to borrow for the ones, so we have 9 tens. Let's see how we do. 10 minus 8 is 2. 9 minus 9 is 0. 6 minus 3 is 3. 1 minus nothing is 1. So we ended up with 1,302, which is the same answer that we got when we did no borrowing and just slid our numbers each up by 2. So that is one easier way to do your subtraction when you're working with unfriendly numbers. So you might be able to do it in your head instead of putting everything down on paper. I want to use this last slide to highlight the difference between adding with compensation and subtracting with compensation because we have a little bit different in procedures here. With adding, let's start with 2,507 plus 4,996. Right away, I know that 4,996 is not a friendly number and we can make it really, really close to 5,000. And to get from 4,996 to 5,000, all we have to do is add 4, which will get us to 5,000. But if we only add 4 to this side, it will change the value of our sum. So we have to make what we're changing 0. That's why if we add 4 here, we have to subtract 4 with the other number. Now I know that 7 minus 4 is 3, so we would have 2,503 plus 5,000. Oh, this looks very friendly now because you have 503 here and 0 here. Right away, I know that my hundreds, tens, and ones places are all going to be 503. And now I look at my thousands places. 2 plus 5 is 7. So I subtracted 4 here because I added 4 here. That's how we don't change our sum. And let's double check and make sure we're correct. We have 2,507 plus 4,906. And we're going to go through all of our regrouping. 7 plus 6 is 13. Regroup that 110 into the tens place. 1 plus 9 is 10. Regroup that 110 into the hundreds place. Now we have 1 plus 5 is 6. And 6 plus 9 is 15. Regroup that into the thousands place. And I have 1 plus 2 is 3. And 3 plus 4 is 7. And if you look, our answers match up. 7,503 and 7,503. So we did a good job. Let's go on to subtracting because, like I said, it's a little bit different. I kept our number the same, 2,507, and then I just made this 996 because it's smaller. Now I can look at 996 and say right away that it is close to 1,000. So let's make it 1,000. That's a super easy number to work with. But to get from 996 to 1,000, we had to add 4. And remember, subtracting is like a distance. So we want to keep the distance between these two numbers the same. So if I move this 996 up 4, I have to move the 2,507 up 4. So I have to add 4 to keep the distances the same. Now 7, that'll give us 11, 5, 2,511 minus 1,000. Perfect, because all I have to do is subtract my thousands places. I have 511 minus nothing is just going to be 511. That's so simple. Now, and then I subtract my thousands places. 2 minus 1 is just 1. I did no regrouping and I got 1,511. Let's double check with the traditional method of regrouping. 2,507 minus 996. And we're going to make sure we got the same difference. 7 minus 6, that's easy enough. That's 1. But I cannot do 0 minus 9 because there's more on the floor. So I have to go next door and get 10 more 10s. So I have 10 minus 9, that is 1. 4 minus 9, 9 is larger than 4, more on the floor. I have to go next door again. This is a lot of regrouping here. So I regroup, I have now 1,000, and I have 14 hundreds. 14 minus 9 is 5. 1 minus nothing is 1. So look, our answers are the same. We kept the distance between the two numbers the same and made it easier to subtract without borrowing. Here, we had to really pay attention to which numbers were larger and smaller so we didn't make a regrouping mistake. So if you're in a hurry and you don't have paper and pencil, I would say subtracting with compensation is the way to go. But if you still like doing your regrouping and are very confident, you can do it this way too.